Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Randy Niemeyer here with you. I am the Lake County Republican Party chairman. You may have seen my past series, Randy on the Road. It's a little different. We're going to dive into some local, state, national issues and have a real in-depth conversation. Sometimes we might get lost in the weeds, but I think it's important to know the details, to be able to answer the why questions. So let's start this with redistricting. Some of you may have recently seen my editorial in the local newspaper called Redistricting is Right and Necessary. Now, I didn't come to that conclusion just based on an opinion, although that is my opinion. I've done some homework on this. The last couple months, I've really been studying this. I'm a person in serving in local government for the last 17 years who believes in making good policy. And I think that redistricting is no different, that you have to look at good policy. Traditionally, that's been done every 10 years after the decennial census. Now, this is a very unique situation that sees us in a possible mid-decade redraw of congressional maps in several states around the country. And right here in Indiana, you say, well, Indiana didn't have a problem, did they? Well, maybe not directly, but maybe the trickle down of what's happened in this entire country over the last couple of decades is something we really need to look at. How Congress is apportioned is based on the census that happens every 10 years. Apportionment means that's how it's decided how many seats are apportioned to each state. And that's based on a population number that right now is around 760,000. Now, within that population number, that includes all people, right? Sounds logical. But then you go back to the Biden administration, the last 4 years, where they opened the borders and flooded this country with estimated between 12 and 20 million people. Now, if each congressional seat is 760,000 and you add 20 million to the next census, well, you can do the math. That has a big impact on this entire country and how seats are apportioned, but also electoral votes. So in the Electoral College, each state has the same number of electoral votes that they have congressional seats plus 2. So Indiana has 11 electoral votes and 9 congressional seats. So you can see how the weight of the entire country rests upon our federal government actually breaking our own laws for 4 years under President Biden. And why did they do that? Well, this is where we get into the nitty-gritty. If you haven't read my editorial, please read it, because there is a reason behind this entire approach, and it started years ago. If you can flood the system with enough non-citizens, you can actually start to outweigh the voice of citizens and voters. That is done through the census count and through the apportionment process. The Center for Immigration Studies released a report called Tilting the Balance. In this report, it shows in great detail what that possible impact has been up to 2020 and what it could be going into 2030. I suggest that you read that. It's a great report. And the American Redistricting Project dives in deeper into what it looks like due to the Census Bureau's own reporting of the post-enumeration survey that took place in 2021 shows that already the balance has shifted. As many as 5 seats that likely would have belonged to Republicans belong to Democrats because of the census miscount in 2020. Now, if you look at the Biden administration's policies of open borders and the states that had the sanctuary laws, these laws created the incentive for people to move to individual states. They were given many times work permits right away, Social Security numbers, some cases even driver's licenses. In New York, I'm sure you saw the Roosevelt Hotel turned into a high-dollar shelter for illegal immigrants to find sanctuary and be guarded from the law. Now, why would New York and California and Illinois and other states be sanctuary states? Because they're losing population quickly. That loss of population has to be made up somewhere, or they're going to lose seats and electoral votes, likely to quickly growing red states. So why is redistricting necessary right now? Why not wait till 2030? Well, the Democrats have been playing a long game with us for a long time. And listen, like you, I have Democrat neighbors, friends, family members, and I like them, right? I have friends. But the party mechanism behind this is not altruistic. They're not in it for the fun of it. They're in it to win it. And as Republicans, it's about time we step up and start recognizing that the Democrats are playing the long game and they're about to win it. So in 2030, when the next census is counted, if you add 20 million people in sanctuary areas, mostly blue areas, this is going to have an outweighed effect on how congressional seats are apportioned and electoral votes. If the Democrats take control of our government again, as they did a couple of years ago under Joe Biden and 2 years of a full Democrat Congress, House and Senate, they've already promised us what they'll do. They'll do things like make Puerto Rico and D.C. states. What does that give them the ability to do? Well, 4 more U.S. senators. You take the Senate, you take the House, you take the White House in 2032. Now you got the opportunity to make laws to pack the courts. They've already said they're going to do that. One thing I've learned about Democrats and their party is that when they tell you something, you'd be better to believe it than not. I believe them. If you look at the state of, or the city of New York City, in 2021, they passed a law that allowed non-citizens to vote in municipal elections so long as they've been in the city for 1 month and they have at minimum a work permit or legal papers. Now you say, well, that's New York City. That place is crazy. What does that have to do with Indiana? All laws like this start local because all government is local. So will Democrats attempt to make the illegal immigrants who they've gotten work permits through the abuse of the asylum laws, through shipping them to sanctuary states, will they try to make those people voters? Well, they're already working the system to dilute your vote and your voice through the process of counting non-citizens and illegal immigrants in the census count. Now, hey, I know the law says that all persons shall be counted. I acknowledge that. You can still count all the people, but you should have a question on the census. Are you a citizen or not? Very simple. That question should then be applied to apportionment and electoral votes. If you're not a citizen, you don't get counted towards apportionment and electoral votes, because that would then be weighting the system of self-government and the rights of those people who have a vote in the system. It would be weighting it in favor of the blue states. Now we know that the pendulum politically swings both ways, and it has for centuries now. But as we approach this country's 250th birthday, we need to correct some things that could have never been contemplated 250 years ago, and this is one of them. Who would have ever guessed that an American president and an administration would ignore the sovereignty of this country, would completely ignore the Constitution and the laws of this country? Well, we just witnessed it, folks. And it wasn't out of humanitarian purposes. This is purely for power. Now, in the state of Indiana, our legislature is faced with a difficult decision coming up. So far, I haven't heard yet whether Governor Braun will call a special session or not. I personally hope he does. But when he does, it's going to be difficult. There'll be a lot of pressure on our members of the House and the Senate right here in Indiana. There'll be pressure from media outlets to vote against it, from left-leaning activist groups to vote against it. There'll be pressure from even some Republican groups to vote against it. But I think the important thing to remember is in issues like this, what does it look like if you vote against it? What could happen? What's the harm? Well, let's say the Democrats have that scenario come true where they gain a bunch of seats because of this apportionment equation. Have you heard of the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act? Well, John Lewis was an actual civil rights leader who became a very prominent member of Congress. God rest his soul, he passed away. But in this act, it gives the federal government broad authority over things like drawing legislative maps. So I'm going to reference a couple of things here. Preventing racial gerrymandering. That's important. We don't want anything to be done on the basis of race. But who determines what is racial gerrymandering? If it's the federal government and it's run by Democrats, and if you look at this definition, the bill would strengthen the ability of voters and the Department of Justice to challenge racially discriminatory maps that dilute the voting power of minority communities. So I live in Lake County, Indiana, very diverse county. Who makes the decision what is discriminatory? Again, if it's the federal government, whatever party's in power will make that determination. And if the Democrats win this long game in 2030 with the census, they will be in power. And you can bet that any map drawn in a Republican state will be challenged for discrimination, whether it's true or not. Addressing partisan gerrymandering. Now, this is a practice as old as the redrawing maps practice. Go to our neighboring state in Illinois, it looks like a kindergartner vomited on a paper. And they just said, well, there's our maps. You've got one district that makes the letter C across the middle of the state. It's really something to see. While the bill's primary focus is on protecting against racial discrimination, some versions have also aimed to combat partisan gerrymandering through new transparency requirements. Now, again, it's in the eye of the beholder. If the Democrats have the power, they make up the rules. They have the federal judges. They're writing the laws. Judicial review. If discriminatory maps were proposed, again, definition of discriminatory, very important. A restored VRA would allow federal oversight to block them and ensure they are redrawn fairly, rather than relying solely on after-the-fact litigation. Now, some of that sounds good, right? Altruistic. It feels good. But when the federal government starts to intrude on what has, from the start of this country, been states' rights of governing elections, you can bet that if the Democrats have the power, the Republican supermajority that exists in Indiana right now will be drawn out. And the Democrats will say it's in the name of fighting discrimination, but it's really in the name of a partisan power grab. Don't forget, these people virtue signal to us all the time. And yet when it comes time to back it up, all they have is a yeah, but. Right? I'm tired of that. So my Republican friends in the Indiana legislature, my message to you is this. I understand that nobody likes to go to the office, get yelled at, get jeered at, have people say bad things about them. I've run in plenty of elections, 2 primaries that have been contested, 2 chairman elections that have been contested. Every general election I've ran in has been contested. Sometimes it's nice to not have that pressure. I get it. But when the republic hangs in the balance, when the actual system of self-government at our 250th anniversary hangs in the balance, what do you want to be remembered for? What legacy of service to your state, to your country, do you want to be remembered for? There are moments in time where we have to stand up and be counted. And it's not surprising to me that our 250th birthday that we might have one of these moments right now. We already saw they tried to eliminate President Trump twice. And this wasn't just some one-off crazy lunatic. This is systemic. They assassinated Charlie Kirk, one of our conservative icons, a great messenger, a man who believed in fairness, believed in listening to people. And they killed him because he dared to respond with conviction of his faith and his ideals. Will you stand up like Charlie did for the cause, for the foundational principles of this country? This is a pivotal moment in our history. If we redraw the maps in several states around this country, correct the errors that the Census Bureau themselves admitted in the post-enumeration survey that happened in 14 states, miscounts. Now, I have seen where people say, well, President Trump was the president during the census count. Yes, he was. But he was not the president during the certification process in April of 2021, when the votes were, when the census was counted to determine apportionment and electoral votes was under the Biden administration. Now, there's been several lawsuits against that census, and I've spoken with a lawyer that was a part of that lawsuit to try and reverse engineer where the miscounts took place. And wouldn't you know it, that the servers were filled with noise and they couldn't figure out how to reverse engineer it? Not coincidence. The Biden administration was the most corrupt administration in the history of this country. And I think history will tell us that years from now. So it's time to correct the errors of the present. It's time for Congress to get to work on passing Chuck Edwards' Equal Representation Act. And if the Democrats are serious about a fair count, equal representation, real representation, pass the Equal Representation Act, have the citizenship question on the census. Stop the madness of importing people to weight the system in your favor. Have a real count of citizens and voters that makes sure that the voice of the American people is the first voice that we hear. As we go forward in this redistricting process, you're going to see a lot from me. I continue to work at this, dig into the details. I think it's so important that we don't just do it because somebody else did it before, because Delaware gerrymandered, or New Hampshire, or Massachusetts. We've all seen the charts on TV about the percentage in each one of those states of Republican voters and how some of them have 0 Republican reps. That's map drawing in Democrat states. So it's legal. You might not like it, but it's not a good enough reason to just break with the every 10-year cycle. But the reasons I gave you of a census miscount admitted by the Census Bureau, of the immigration push, the illegal border policies of the federal government, the illegal sanctuary policies of state governments, these are good enough reasons. These are legal basis to challenge this, to move forward with this, to take bold action right now, to make sure that when 2030 comes, that we don't look back and say, man, we should have acted. Because the price of not acting could be the republic. And remember what Democrats always tell us about democracy. What does that mean when they tell us that word? That means the 51% get to decide everything for the 49%. And in a representative republic, constitutional republic, We elect people to work on our behalf, where your government sets the stage for individuals to have liberty, pursue happiness, preserve life, those foundational principles of our country. The Democrats have been working to make this into a socialist country. Heck, they're about to elect a communist, the mayor of New York City. You can imagine what kind of nonsense is going to come out of that city council once that happens. You think them having non-citizens vote in elections, and luckily, that law was just recently struck down by the New York Supreme Court in a 6-1 decision. There was one dissenting. It's only a matter of time until they get something like this to work. It's not a far-off thing to think about because they're trying it everywhere. Folks, time to take action. Be aware. Do your homework. And to the legislators in the state of Indiana, I understand the difficulty that this presents. But please understand, this isn't about any one seat. This is actually about the entire country. This is about maintaining the core principal values that we have enjoyed for nearly 250 years. It's time for us to step up. It's time for us to do the hard thing, the right thing, and be good Americans. Let's take bold action today. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. We're going to have a lot more to come in the future. Look forward to having conversations with all of you. And you'll see that we have a lot of information out there that we can help shed some light on. Right here from the Lake County Republican Party, from the chairman, and from all of you from the living room. I say good night, Godspeed, and God bless America.